Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickerson. Season's greetings.
It's beginning to look like Christmas, isn't it?
It certainly is, and Dubbo is looking mighty fine this Christmas time.
Thank you very much. It's something that we do put an effort into, certainly around our CBD with the Christmas tree and the flags of some of our local heroes down the main street. So it is great to see the city put in an effort, and obviously the shopkeepers all put in an effort as well. It's lots of great decorations throughout the place, so it's a good feeling. I think people are looking forward to next year when we mightn't have pandemics and floods and bushfires and mice, and maybe just a normal year, whatever normal looks like, Rod.
Touch wood, fingers crossed. Let's hope that's the case.
That's right.
You got some EV chargers coming into the regional area?
We've got good EV charger installations in Dubbo. We've got some Tesla superchargers. We've got an NRMA charger. So we're well served in Dubbo, but we believe it's actually detrimental to tourism now not to have some EV chargers in your location. Obviously places like Burke have them, places like Cobar have them. It actually helps people travel to those areas because more and more EVs are on the roads these days. Wellington didn't have any though, and so we put in for a grant with the state government several months ago, and we were successful with that grant. So the EVs are being installed as we speak. They should be operational by Christmas, and they're installed at 2 locations. And the grant we got the money under was a tourism grant, so we had to justify them being used for tourism purposes. So we've got some being installed at the Wellington Library and some being installed out at Wellington Caves. So the Wellington Caves is an obvious one for tourism, but the Wellington Library, we had to put an argument together to say that people would stop there and be tourists in the town. So once they stop there, go and look at some of the things in the town, go and shop at some of the shops there. So it'll be actually interesting to see how much they're used. We'll be able to track how much they're used. But again, I think we'll see a few people using those and stopping there along their route, especially over the Christmas break.
I recently spent some time in NSW, Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong,
Right.
and travelling the highways, there were a lot of the Tesla around.
Yeah, that's right. It is something that when you notice one or two, you start to notice more and more of them. And it is a bit of that confirmation bias. You buy a red car and you see lots of red cars on the road, but when you own an EV, you do notice more and more EVs on the road. But it's actually getting better in regional areas. I do find that if I'm in somewhere like a Sydney or a Melbourne, I see a few around. But then when you get to regional areas, not as much. But no, I'm seeing more and more now, which is great.
And hopefully we'll see more and more in the Dubbo Regional Council area. Now, what's this new resident guide?
This is something we've been doing for at least the last decade. Ever since I was mayor last time, I know we were doing it. I'm sure we started a little bit before I came along. And that was a guide to help people when they first moved to our city, to give them some information about various things they would find in the city. So, for example, if I move to a new place, I might want to try and find some sports clubs for my kids to play, or even myself to play sport. What a great way to get introduced to some people in a new community when you move into it. So the guide's got about 100, actually over 100 sporting clubs in the community. So pretty much whatever sport you want to play, you'll find a club in there to be able to show you what to do and how to get involved in that particular club. Then you might want to work out where you go for shopping, where you go to do some of your normal services, just a whole range of things that we take for granted when we live in a community and have done for some time. But for someone new, they've got to work out all those things. So it's a document that's got a whole range of information about our community, how to access some of those services, how to join some of those clubs, just all that information, which is great to make people feel welcome. And that's what it's all about, Rod. When people come to our communities, we want to make sure that they feel welcome and they want to stay and they want to tell their friends about what a great community it is. We also do use it for a marketing tool, though, because people do ring us. They ring a visitor information centre, for example, and say, we're thinking about coming to Dubbo. What can you tell us? And so we send that new resident guide out to people as well, all across the state, in fact, across the nation and across the world, because there are people from lots of different places looking to come to Dubbo and the Dubbo region. So it's a great little marketing tool as well. So our new version of that launched. Each version of that normally goes for about 18 months before we update it again, and things change in that time frame. And we've got to cover the costs of printing, so we've got sponsors in there as well, which obviously cover some of those costs there. So it's a good guide, and get your hands on it, because even for locals, they find some new things in there as well.
I was recently in your tourist information centre in Dubbo. It's a great little building and pet friendly.
And pet friendly, that's exactly right, because lots of people do travel through with their pets, so it is important. And it's, again, those small things, Rod, that make a difference. It's just being pet friendly, it's being welcoming. How can we make your stay a bit better? And the Visitor Information Centre do a great job in keeping people in Dubbo just that bit longer. Show them a few more things, show them extra facilities, extra tourist spots to go to. Every night we keep someone in Dubbo, it's about $200 per person per night that goes into our economy. So it's worthwhile keeping people in our community for just that one night longer.
Oh, your councillors and had a bit of a Christmas party, is it? And you went, well, not golfing, but disc golfing.
We went disc golfing. It was fascinating. We had our 10 councillors along to play a bit of disc golf for our Christmas function. We just had a little private function we organised amongst the 10 of us. We've been together for a year now, and I thought it was a good opportunity for the 10 of us just to get together and just talk about the year and just have a nice little social function. And we thought, well, I thought we'd try and do something different. And so I came up with the idea of disc golf, which I've never played before, but I must admit was actually a lot of fun. It's just like normal golf, except you play it with a frisbee or a range of frisbees, and they're called discs rather than frisbees. And you have a driver disc, so you have one that's going to go longer but not quite as accurate, and then you have one that's a mid-range disc, and then a putter disc. So a whole range of different things we learned about it on the night, but that was played down at the area along near Sandy Beach, just along the riverbank there. So a nice spot. Then we had a barbecue, and my wife was good enough to come along and cook a barbecue for all the councillors, and we sat there as the sun went down and looked across Sandy Beach and across the river there. So very nice setting for the end of the year for councillors to discuss what we've done this year and work out how we're going to do some fantastic things next year.
Well, one thing the council staff have been dealing with is some funky water.
I've actually not been able to smell it, but maybe my senses are going a bit dull in my old age. But there's apparently a bit of an earthy smell and even potentially a bit of an earthy taste in our water. And so our engineers have been working on what's causing that and also making sure our water is safe to drink, obviously. And the important part is that our water is definitely meeting all the requirements or the parameters set by the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines. So that's all fine. The water is safe, definitely safe. No need to boil the water. Everything's fine with it. But we've tracked it down to geosmin. And I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Rod, because I've never actually heard of geosmin. But it is a natural compound found in water sources. And it's normally in our water. We're normally drinking it all the time, but it's normally in such small amounts that we can't taste it or can't smell it. But with all the recent droughts and then rains we've had, a lot of different compounds have been washing down into our water. We know that our turbidity of our water is higher. We've had to do different things with our water treatment to keep that turbidity down. But this is obviously washing a bit more geosmin into the water, and that's what's coming through. Now, again, I want to guarantee it is safe. Geosmin is safe for people to drink. Even in these higher levels, it's safe, but it does just smell a little bit funny. So just keep that in mind, that if you do smell it, it's okay, but maybe block your nose when you're drinking the water, Rod.
Or take a bottled water if folks are heading to Dubbo. Now, what's happening? We know we've got the Christmas Day coming along fairly soon, then there'll be the Boxing Day sales around your regional area. But what's happening Australia Day?
Australia Day, we've actually had some interesting things, some interesting discussions we've had, because we want to just make some subtle changes, some small changes to Australia Day, Rod, just to be more inclusive. And one of our councillors who's of Aboriginal descent, Lewis Burns, was at Australia Day and did our Welcome to Country this year. And he talked about the fact that it was all about unity for him, and he believed that that was important. So he was there to demonstrate that unity. And then some councillors, and myself included, went over to a Morning Day event after our Australia Day event. And a lot of people from Aboriginal descent call it Morning Day or Genocide Day or Survival Day. And so the idea was formed on that day, actually. We had two separate events. Is there some way we could make it more inclusive? So we've got a few changes that are subtle. One change is, rather than having just the mayor and the ambassador speak on the day, we're adding an Aboriginal elder to speak about the context of Australia Day. We're also adding a multicultural food stall event after Australia Day, because we've got 18.8% of our residents who have been born overseas. So we thought it's nice to recognise them. And the third change we wanted to make, again, a subtle change, but we hit a bit of a roadblock. Rather than have it on the morning of Australia Day, we wanted to have it as a twilight event. And that's the same as the Australian of the Year as announced by the Prime Minister. at a twilight event on the 25th of January. So there's not really that big an issue. We're not trying to change the date as such, but let's just take away a little bit of that pain associated with the 26th of January from Aboriginal people. So we went to do that, and we talked to the Department of Home Affairs, which controls the Australian Citizenship Ceremonies Code, and we were told that Wellington could have a twilight event, but Dubbo could not have a twilight event, which seemed crazy. But the Australian Citizenship Ceremonies Code said that local government councils must hold a citizenship ceremony on 26 January as part of their Australia Day celebrations, except councils that conferred citizenship on less than 20 people in the previous year. They're exempt from that requirement. Wellington had less than 20 citizenships in the previous year, so they can have a twilight event, and that's what we've planned. We've got a council resolution to say that. Dubbo had more than 20, so we have to have the event on Australia Day in Dubbo. Now, we resolved that at our previous council meeting on the 8th of December. Within 8 days, the federal government came out with a new ruling and said that now, going forward, you're allowed to have a 6-day window. So people could have their events, or councils could have their events, anywhere from the 23rd of January to the 29th of January. So in relation to councils like ours, we've been talking to the Department of Home Affairs for several months trying to change this. We got nowhere. Some other councils around Australia were doing the same thing. And as a result of those actions, they've actually now changed the code officially to allow councils like us to have that twilight event. Dubbo, now all the planning's in place. We'll still have to go ahead with ours on the 26th of January. But in 2024, that gives us more flexibility in what we might do.
So all in all, not such good news straight up, but thankfully the government is recognising that people may want to do different things, and what you want to do will happen.
We're actually calling our Deputy Mayor Nostradamus at the moment, because in the discussion at the council meeting about all of this, he said that it does seem crazy that just that arbitrary number of 20 was chosen. And he said, I guarantee that a federal government in the future will make a change to this code, and this whole discussion will be a moot point soon. Now, I don't know that he was planning to happen 8 days later, but we have been calling him Nostradamus. We're trying to get some lotto numbers out of him.
Give them to me as well, please. Can I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2023?
Absolutely, and same to you and all your listeners. And I really appreciate the time that you've allowed me to discuss various council issues on 2WEB this year, Rod. I appreciate the fact that every fortnight we're here chatting about things, and hopefully your listeners appreciate the information and the updates.
Oh, it's a capital city for Western New South Wales, I reckon, so it's a pleasure having you on.
We'll talk again next year. I'm sure it'll be hopefully a very exciting next year, Rod.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.